less likelihood you have of entering that secondary intervention phase. And secondary intervention is now you start to show signs or symptoms of some sort of, I don't know, inefficiency or deficiency or whatever else.
What was it? It becomes secondary when some type of
it's when signs start to show.
So like you
start and get signs of something like a little niggle here and there. And it's like you can have some type of secondary intervention there, but then if you move on to the point of symptoms, right, that's probably when you're going to have to start going down that clinical route of getting it looked at, and then you move into that tertiary, or you move into that clinical phase, and then after that you move into that tertiary prevention.
Yeah, because tertiary, the key thing was it's not prevention anymore. It's you're like trying to heal. What was the word they used?
I can't remember.
So the whole time it's like preventing and then rehabbing.
It's still when you move into like tertiary, it's still prevention, but it's different, right? Because it's like a lot of the time when we get injured, we get the tick in the box from the physio. You're good to go. You're good to go back to training, and then straight away we're better, and we don't think about that old injury anymore. We move on, we crack on, we train how we used to.
Because every time you suffer an injury an injury, right? And when I say an injury, I mean like an injury to the degree where you've shown signs and symptoms and been clinically diagnosed with an injury,
Correct,
right?
Yeah.
Where every time you've experienced an injury to that degree, your system has ultimately been like altered to some degree, to a small degree. And so returning back to where you were before that ever happened is a boo-boo, right? Well, at least, you guys tell me if I'm wrong. It's like you have to consider what you just went through. You have to consider what's the word I'm looking for here, where like something like, I don't know, like...
You just have to consider the potential flow-on effects from that prior whatever you've had. Because like we said, we start in primary prevention. Yep. Primary prevention is where we want to be, always, all right? But it's like a loop. We want to get back there if we get injured. So say if we see some type of signs, we move into that secondary prevention. That's when we could start implementing things like injury prevention drills, because now we have something to actually sort of work with or work for. It's like, oh, my shoulder's niggling, whatever it might be. You can you're not going to diagnose anything because you can't do that clinically without being qualified, but you can still make educated guesses on what it might be and do your best to, whether it's looking at load management, exercise selection, whatever that might be, you can do that. But then it's like if you start moving to that area of symptoms and like severe pain, can't do movements, then you start moving into that diagnosis. And once you get that diagnosis, that's when you go into clinical care. And then once you have gone through your clinical care, whether it's, let's say, like early rehab into some type of late stage rehab, return to training, whatever, that's when you move more into that tertiary role of I'm getting back to training, I'm bringing in those things that I used to do. But we still have in the back pocket, I'm still coming back from, say, a shoulder injury, so I still need to be a little bit more specific with exercise selection and loading and these things until I get to the point where I'm kind of gone back full circle to that primary.
Back to primary,
prevention.
That's fucking good. Yeah.
Hopefully that made sense to anyone listening.
You don't realise that, and there was some good examples today we talked about, like, say, for example, you've had some type of lower limb injury and you're going to stay off your lower limb, but now you're going to emphasise upper limb training, right? And then you start overloading that and you forget that you get too keen, right? And now you're going to cause yourself damage because you're still trying to chain, but you're not really giving yourself a chance to fix your overload.
Yeah, I know I use this term so much lately, but it's that whole like chronic acute loading thing, right? It's like you can look at chronic loading as like maybe like a mesocycle, and then acute loading could be like each week. Say you have that little niggle or whatever in your lower body in week 2, then you're like, I'm just going to smash upper body in week 3, and the acute loading's gone from maybe like a 5 to 10% increase to a 20% increase, which is like, that may be too much. So obviously that's still clutching at straws, trying to make assumptions, but potentially not the best idea.
So if we go back to primary interventions and we just look at primary interventions and what that means for a person who's training.
Prevention.
Hey?
Primary prevention.
What did I say? Intervention. Well, I've been saying intervention this whole time. No one's correcting me. So fuck you both. Primary prevention. So again, it's like we're not trying to say, or I don't think it's saying that you're able to prevent an injury. You're preventing something from happening, but you're risk mitigating.
So that's something to clarify. It's injury prevention is bullshit in the sense of you cannot predict an injury. You can't predict an injury, right? With that, you can't predict what caused an injury, and you can't do that accurately. There's 2 types, right? You've got trauma. Trauma is cool. That dude got hit by a car. that's how he broke his legs. Right? The person that did their ACL out on the field, yeah, they did their ACL out on the field because they, I don't know, turned far, like quickly or something, but you don't actually know if that was the cause. It could have just been the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Absolutely. The cause could have been the years prior of incorrect or too much loading, right? And
yeah, but it could be anything. Like you can look at, it could be, I don't know, the fucking weather, the ground was slippery. I don't know, her boots weren't tied up properly.
Yeah, because everything could have been actually aligned and perfectly well in terms of their training sequence. But like I said, the ground was wet.
Yeah.
Good. How are you going to prevent wet ground?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
From now on, people should squat in wet surfaces.
Yeah, so that's why I think injury prevention is pretty good in the sense of, let's say, if you're in tertiary prevention, because you've already had that injury, so it's like I'm more susceptible to that, right? So injury prevention drills might be a little bit more specific and applicable in that situation.
I'd look at it as almost like injury prevention would now be, okay, I've understood that I've been diagnosed with X injury or whatever else. Okay, from now on, my training when I go back to primary is going to look something along the lines that it's not going to infuriate that past injury.
Correct.
Or bring it upon sooner than when because it might happen again.
Exactly right. And then it can also be the point of, okay, I'm getting some signs. Right, that might mean now I need to put in some preventative measures, whether that's, as I said before, load management, exercise selection, or whatever it might be, to hopefully it doesn't then progress back on. You can kind of move back on the spectrum into primary prevention again.
Yeah. And the key points there is, like, most people, when they think of that, like, primary prevention, they're thinking like, foam rolling, trigger point, band exercises. No, we're talking about...
It's just training.
Yeah, training in general. And so it's like, I've heard this term talked about, like the whole positive and negative effect of, say, strength training, right? The positive effect of strength training is that, you become stronger, right? You'll become more efficient and handle those external loads. The negative of it is that you're kind of building an armor, so to speak, so that you can protect yourself, so to speak, from being exposed to, a different type of force. So you've got, like you said, logical progressions here. We're not just talking about those things that people think of like rehab-wise.
Yeah, and that's kind of why it made a whole lot of sense to me of the whole holistic approach of health and performance, because the whole point of primary prevention is promoting health. And it's like, if you're trying to perform, well, you're not trying to make yourself more unhealthy. So you're always going to be wanting to be sitting in that bracket of primary prevention if performance is the goal.
Well, I mean, the only reason I agree, but I also disagree, because it's like we've already spoken about this before, where it's like you want high output or high performing performance. To a degree, health is going to be sacrificed there.
It is,
but it's not meant to be sacrificed forever.
But it's like even in that stage that you're sacrificing, let's say health,
sure,
you're still. I'm not even going to... Let's leave bodybuilding out of the picture, because bodybuilding is not healthy, regardless what anyone says. When I say bodybuilding, like competing on stage, that prep is bad for you. We know that. But like for yourself, say for like you're still adequate hydration, adequate nutrition. Yeah, you're probably pushing some intensities in your training, but it's approached intelligently. You're still trying to do it without causing an issue. Right, so I'd still put that in a bracket of promoting health
and preventing an onset of an injury.
So you're still trying to promote health, but you're trying to promote it to fit your narrative, so to speak.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, your discipline or whatever. Yeah,
yeah, that's a better word.
How does that make you feel? When we talk about this spectrum of primary, secondary, and tertiary preventions, right? Like, how do you simplify that? Like, what would that mean to somebody else?
It seems like a good framework, so to speak, like a traffic light system. Right. Green light, we're always trying to be in that green light for the primary, and then yellow light, the secondary stuff. You start to see some signs and symptoms. It's kind of telling you to stop and start monitoring and see what you can change about that in order to not
slow down a little bit.
Yeah, and then when you're in red, you're in that tertiary. Like you've got to sort out what you got to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think being cognizant of once you have gone through that injury, that you're not going to go back to 100%, right? Like, let's take Louis, for example, with his knee injury. Like, you're training for this last, 6 months, even further than that?
I'd say it's been a solid 8-9 month push.
Yeah, you've always been having strategies. You've been using the BFR, blood flow restriction training, to start to bring that up. All these different strategies that you're trying to monitor, right? So that whole forget and you'll be perfect is not really a thing, really.
Yeah.
It's always been cognizant.
And that's, I know... Blue used that.
Shout out to Blue.
The Nordic study, right? And I know what you said about the Nordic study, how it's like bullshit in terms of injury prevention or whatever. which in a sense it is. But in a study that they found it to be applicable, the people that were using the Nordic had already had prior hamstring injuries. So in their them as an athlete, it makes sense, right? But if you've never had a hamstring injury, maybe you probably doesn't matter as much, right? So that's kind of looking at that way. It's like, cool, you've had previous hamstring injuries. All right, yeah, we're probably going to have to look at strengthening those hamstrings, right? So, but if you haven't, yeah, it's probably going to be part of your training, doing some type of hamstring work or whatever it might be, but doesn't necessarily mean you're going to throw in 10 minutes of Nordics every session to prevent injury because it's come up in your sport a few times. So,
and out of that, we got the 4 E's.
Yeah.
The 4 E's to key to prevention. And what were they?
You wrote them down, didn't you?
Oh, I can't
It was like educate, enforce, environment,
education,
and
enforcement,
environment,
equipment. And then environment was the last one. And it's
sure.
like for us in that state, we couldn't apply all of them. But for a lot of them, we could, like equipment-wise, right? A barbell deadlift is starting to cause you some kind of discomfort. You now go to a trap bar. You now alleviate that, depending on your sport and what your goal is.
It also depends where the sign of symptom presented itself in,
exactly.
in what manner. So, it's...
But the education side is also like, looking towards experts to see what you can do. Hiring Robust and C to get you to your goals.
Yeah, because the idea of this conversation is not to tell people how they should prevent their injuries.
It's a framework.
It's having an appreciation for this framework. But what I don't like about injury prevention is that people look at absolute exercises that they're employing on a regular basis in hopes that they're never going to suffer an injury. So
I think it's a pretty shit thing to, if you're a coach and you're saying you're doing this for an injury, you better fucking hope that person never gets injured in that area.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to be like, bro, we've been doing knee injury prevention for like 6 months and I just hurt my knee.
Yeah.
What did you do to me?
Exactly. And the Nordic one is an interesting, because it's great. But if we're just thinking about someone who's had a hamstring injury and you employ a Nordic, it's like how limiting, how constraining is the Nordic, but you're still able to get it like a hamstring stimulus, right? It's so load regulating to such a small degree, right? And it's like, and you're probably going to do it at less volume, less frequency because it's eccentric only. And it's like, no shit, that works. It's like, person's had a hamstring injury. There's no particular exercise they need to do or shouldn't do. But now they're just doing an exercise that is easy to execute, but is so limiting in a way that they can still get an effective stimulus, but not actually do too much. You know what I mean?
Well, or what are some other things people could do?
Well, so I had this conversation actually with a bodybuilder from the Gold Coast. I can't say his last name. It was like Adam Monaghan or some shit. Anyway, I think he's a flog.
Was this the...
You're talking about Caribbean Thor?
No. Was this the dude you sent me the ebook?
No, that's Caribbean Thor.
Oh, okay.
He's another conversation.
Is that actually his name?
No, his name's fucking...
Okay.
I don't know. Christian Perez or something.
That's good.
Good dude. But anyway, wrote a biomechanics book, but doesn't even understand. Anyway, whatever.
I love it.
Adam Monaghan, big dude, good dude, not a bad dude, huge, has a lot of results. But anyway, he was, talking some shit about Nordics, right, being so fucking good, whatever, for injury prevention for bodybuilders. I'm just like, at what point? Because you got to remember, Nordics are employed on soccer, were employed on soccer players, and we're thinking about before spewing.
When they're on stage and they're about to,
it's like at what point?
Wait, what is giving Nordics to bodybuilders?
Yeah, at what point is a bodybuilder experiencing high velocity eccentric contraction?
Yeah.
They're not. They shouldn't. But anyway,
do you not understand how soccer players get injured?
Anyway, and so he was now talking about Nordics and trying to do things in the gym that replicates Nordics, but without actually doing a Nordic, like an inverse leg curl or something like that. It's like, dude, if you want to just do something for your hamstrings, I think you should be training your hamstrings both proximally and distally, so at the knee and at the hip, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's what exercise would you do? It's I'd do everything for the hamstrings. You know what I mean? I'd do some heavy RDLs and I'd do some fucking pretty light, high repetition sort of curling of the knee. So, and if it's you have a hamstring injury, what says you can't do a lying hamstring curl, just eccentric only? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, that's unbelievable.
You see some dumb shit out there.
Yeah. And I don't get mad at people.
If I was not doing, I don't know, actually no, I would be quite happy to never do a Nordic hamstring curl ever again in my life.
I said to myself, I was like, they
don't feel great.
I felt like a fucking peanut doing it.
Yeah.
great. I can RDL 200, 230
Yeah,
kilos.
I cramp.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can RDL so heavy, but it's like I do a Nordic and I do like one or two. What, I've got weak hamstrings? Sorry, tell me more. Tell me more, right? Like, garbage. Anyways.
Yeah, it's just knowing the application and stop running with the, I read a paper about soccer players doing fucking Nordics and now it's going to be like injury prevention for all my athletes that don't have hamstring problems.
Sure. Talk about niggles, right? Someone presents you with a bit of a niggle or a discomfort or something. What's the first thing you do?
I change the movement and see if it continues. So, like, I change the variant of it.
So you change variation.
Yeah, variation.
What's like, if you don't mind me asking, what's the rationale behind changing the variant?
Mine would be, if it's a similar movement pattern.
Do you guys mind if I vape?
Yeah, mate, go for it.
Where is it?
Where is it? It's
I'm
in the
hanging.
laptop bag.
In your butt.
There it is. Found it. Yeah, go on.
No, I take that back. I would ask them at what point does the movement hurt, right?
Okay, so you're trying to find position. People can probably hear that I'm vaping.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I'd find the position at where it hurts, right?
Give me an example. Let's go squat. Can we go squat? Or is that too hard?
Yeah, deadlift.
Let's go deadlift.
Deadlift's an
All right,
easy
yeah,
one, right?
yeah.
They do a deadlift and their lower back starts to feel really tight.
Sure.
And then I tell them at what position does it feel tight.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, when it goes past their knees.
Mm-hmm.
I then retrace myself and I'm like, cool, I want you to let's just do an RDL and lower yourself down till you get to the ground, but don't let go, as in don't let the bar touch the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I see, how's that feel now? And then usually most of the time it's like they just don't know how to hold that tension. And so I'm like, all right, each time you start now, I just want you to bring the bar up and then I want you to just lower it down. Essentially we're doing an RDL. And I'll kind of figure it out like there. But if that continues to hurt and they're like, nah, it continues to hurt, I'll grab a trap bar. And I'm like, let's still do the hinge pattern and see what's going on there. It depends. If I have a time with them and I've got sessions, but if I've got 5-10 minutes, I'm going to be like, what's the best bang for my buck? I'm like, let's switch them over. They're still going to get the same stimulus, but they're not in pain or anything like that. Yeah. And I'll ask them, then I'll get them to do the second movement and I'll confirm, do you still feel it? Because sometimes I'll switch the movement in my head. I'm like, they're fine. But I haven't asked them if they're like still feeling that discomfort because I think I've fixed it.
So what's the rationale? Like, I mean, if you don't mind me asking again, I know like I'm prodding here, but it's like, is it trying to find, like, what are you looking for other than just like shortening the distance or whatever? Or is that just what
I'm
you do?
changing the movement pattern to get the stimulus that I'm after, and that's to load the hamstring glutes.
Yeah, okay.
And if I'm not loading it, then I'm going to change the pattern to do that.
Yeah.
What
So
would you do?
say someone did wow, a deadlift, right? And they experienced lower back pain.
Yep.
And you're like, yep, go down here, and that's like, yep, I feel it that way. I feel it there, like you mentioned, the RDL, right? And you switch them to the trap bar deadlift.
Yep.
Would you still continue pushing volume and intensity on the trap bar deadlift? Or, like, what would you do? Like, you've changed the variation, but what do you do now in terms of loading? Because I think that's an important conversation.
I agree. I'd use the trap bar for a bit once they get comfortable. And over the coming sessions, I'll then introduce the deadlift, the normal one. And
can you explain why you'd use the trap bar? Because I think you'd have a pretty good rationale for it.
Fuck the trap. Trap bar, it's so much easier to get into that position. You don't need as much hip flexion to get into the position.
Yep.
And most people naturally just pick up the bar. The only difference is, I always kind of think about this one is, do I still teach it like a hinge or do I let them kind of like...
Squat it.
Yeah, squat it. So that's always the one.
I think trap bar's a squat, but anyway.
Yeah, technically it is, right?
Yeah.
But then I'll play around with it and I'll be like, all right, cool, I want you, what do you call it? Less bend on your knees, so less knee flexion. Still keep it more of a hinge, right? Your shins are relatively straight. And so I'll get them to do that. Once they start to feel that pattern, I'll then go back to the barbell and I'll be like, let's do the similar movement pattern how you set up.
Yeah.
And generally most of the times, because they've been feeling the right muscles and they just feel the position, the awareness, they put that kinesthetic awareness, then what happens is they still feel great and they might have a little bit of like lower back pain, but then I just go back to it again. I keep training that pattern. If that's really not working, then I've never really had it not work, so I can't tell you in a case that it hasn't worked.
Yeah, I think what I've done for people that have, if it's been like a specific movement, majority of the time I'll be like, send me footage of you doing it. 9 times out of 10, I'll be like, okay, you're doing the movement wrong. And then we'll just change a few things and like, oh, that feels way better. So it's usually just a slight positional change.
What about you?
Like I said it today when we first had this discussion, because I was like, you know, if the body's experiencing an issue somewhere, you know, that means that what it's used to has now just been, it's been exposed to something a little bit more, right? And it's probably not ready for it. And so instead of like, for me, I still want people to do that exact same thing. I don't want them to think that what they're doing now is the reason why they're experiencing that issue. Because if I was to be like, we're doing a barbell deadlift, but you experience that issue, whoop, I'm going to take that barbell away from you. You're going to get 2 kettlebells or you're going to get a trap bar. They might think that the actual, anteriorly loaded barbell deadlift is the causation to their pain. And they might have this innate association with the barbell or the deadlift and going, fuck, like that caused me pain. It's bad. It's not good. And then when I eventually get them back on there to try to load them up and get the performance or the output up, they're going to fail because they're going to have this psychological impermanence towards this barbell. So I get really, really fearful of that only because I've had that same experience, right? Because it's like when I do a barbell back squat, I get awfully worried every single time. Doesn't matter how healthy I feel. Sure. And so my rationale, or so what do I do? It's like, I keep them on the exact same implement. Firstly, I look at the technique. Like you said, it's like at what position do things start to hurt, right? And then we stay doing that exact same movement to alternate positions, right? Or I just reduce the total load, like the total exposure they're getting to that exercise, right? I don't necessarily back off the weight, but I'll just tinker with volume. I'll tinker with frequency. And, so that's kind of how I go about that.
Well, you can always shorten the runway.
Yes, shorten the runway. Yeah, for sure.
Well, you've seen people do that, right? Where, say they're squatting to a box and you start to slowly remove that box and, that's just one method of getting them to squat to parallel or below, right? I've seen that done. And it works pretty well because they start to get comfortable. A constraints approach, you start to remove that. We're building competency, one of the main things. There's just so many ways of doing it.
Literally so many ways. Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't say there's any right or wrong way. Well, potentially, but
what would be a wrong way? What would be a wrong way?
Crack on, mate.
Yeah. Oh, it'll go away.
It's all in your head.
Yeah. Look, that's not. There could be merit to that.
No, there absolutely. Sorry, there is merit to that.
Yeah.
But throwing it like it's all in your head, people can't hear that.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Which is what you made a good point there. I haven't really thought about that. Like, if I haven't, it's more like now explain to them why I'm using the trap bar, and so that it's not their fault that the barbell is hurting them.
I think it's not the barbell's fault.
It's not the barbell's fault. It's like we just used the wrong thing for you to first load.
I've loaded you too quickly. I've loaded you too much too soon. I've given you too many frequency of exposures.
Yeah.
Like
You're getting too good. I need to just bring you back a little bit.
I think that's a good one. You've gotten so good at it. You're being able to handle this to such a high degree.
I had this conversation with a colleague. Right, he was not feeling great on a deadlift. Right.
Did you say the word colleague?
Yeah, I got to say colleague.
That's so professional.
Professional.
Anyway,
and he was, doing deadlifts. Right. Firstly, his jumps were pretty. Over the couple of weeks, he was jumping like 5 kilos, and then he told me he's like, I just wasn't feeling great. He was doing like 5s, I believe, right? And he's like, I wasn't feeling great. So what I did was I reduced the weight, and then I started doing sets of 10 to practice technique. And I was like, why did you do that? He's like, if I do more reps, I'll get better at technique. And I was like, that is true. Partly, but I was like, there's a skill component to lifting heavy, right? Once you get to your 5s, your 4s, your triples, your doubles, your singles, there's a skill component, right? And I was like to him, by reducing the load, you're now not working on that skill component. So I was like, don't do that. I was like, reduce the load for those doubles and triples and start working on that. Or what we've done before, where you build up to a relatively heavy triple and then you back off and you do those bigger sets. That's one way of still getting both the stimulus of what you're trying to get and actually practicing the skill of lifting heavy, right? You forget that. I totally forget that. I was like, there you go, man.
Because like if you're doing 5s or 10s, right, they're two skill components.
Yeah. Fuck.
There's a skill of doing a set of 5 and then a set of 10, even at the same weight. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they're two different skills, right?
And if that's the case as well, you're really trying to hone it in. Why not do 10 sets of 3?
Exactly. Yeah, why not? If you're trying to do that volume.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, man. But
there's
just
a million ways to do it, I guess. But
just having an idea. Well, I guess here we're trying to build competency, but through a simpler way.
Yeah.
What else is happening? We're going to go see Andrew Locke.
Yeah.
That'd
be all right.
Excited.
It'd be really cool, actually.
What are you going to ask him? I'm sure we're going to have this conversation after, obviously.
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not too sure what I'll ask him. I'm more interested to see, like we've spoken about, the application for the population we work with of the things you'll bring. I think that'll be a cool conversation.
We got to remember, we don't just work with militarized population. We also work with general people
of course.
That are doing things outside of the military environment. So I think that'd be quite interesting.
Can you say he presents?
How do you store your information?
I'm that's
What's the learning process for you?
Have you heard of this app called Notion?
I'm obsessed, man, because I think in the future, as you go, you want to write an ebook or you want to write a paper, but how you communicate information, like you're probably going to refer studies, right? And so there is so much information out there. So I still
if you're
think
a fucking
everyone.
loser.
You're a fucking nerd,
you
Mudge.
No, I'm just joking.
What am I-
Wait, how's Rome research going?
It's fucking all well,
Is
bro.
it still going?
The bit where I came unstuck was I had too many categories.
Yeah,
Right, I
okay.
talked to you about this. I think that I showed
We're
you.
going to get Evan back on. You can fucking hit him up about it.
He might. I had too many categories and I tried to categorize everything and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, there's overload, there's specificity, there's hypertrophy.
How do you guys go about processing information? I've had a lot of conversations recent times where people are just like, oh my God, there's so much to learn. Like, how am I going to know this kind of stuff? Like, how do I know what you know? I'm just blowing smoke up my own ass here, but like, how do you know what you know? How do you remember it all?
Bro,
Kind of stuff.
It's hard, but I think, like, especially like honestly, over the last like 2 years, we've done a lot of courses, and like every now and then, someone will say something, and I was like, I completely forgot about that, but I literally did all of this fucking work on it, and I'm like, no shit, that's the first thing I should be doing, but I think now where I'm at is it's like, I think you have to sort of build your process of the things that you think are important and then build the way you might say like structure a program or do this, and that could be through like whether it's a bunch of things from here, a bunch of things from here, a bunch of things, and then you just sort of mold it into one and then you build that process.
So how do you mold it? Like, what do you do to mold?
I have a simple process, bro.
I've got a simpler process. You tell me yours.
I know your process. Remember everything, but I can't do that.
No, it's not. It's actually not remember everything.
I use the Zettelkasten system, bro.
Excuse me?
Zettelkasten system.
Can you spell that?
I cannot.
Are you saying
try?
that? Are you saying that right?
Wait,
or-
can you-
Zettelkasten.
Can you try spell it?
Oh fuck.
It's for camera. This is going on YouTube.
Zettel. Zettl. Zettel. Kasten. Kasten.
K.
Kasten. Zettelkasten.
All right,
Anyways,
well, fuck it.
Zettelkasten.
Anyways,
Go on.
we'll spell check
it's-
this.
It actually comes from a book called How to Take Smart Notes. Probably one of the best books I've read.
Wait, bro, you got it right.
Get
Actually.
fucked.
Yep.
Fuck yeah, genius. Anyways.
All right then.
But
Third thing, Zettelkasten Notion. You fucking nerd.
no, that's so how it's a guy, obviously his fucking last name's Zettelkasten, and he was a German dude, right?
I love how you said that. Obviously, like I was fucking meant to know that.
No, he's
I thought he was a girl.
yeah, German dude, right? And he produced so much papers over time, but he used to have a like classical little white notes, index cards, and all he had was two types, right? He had sources, so he would read something, and once he read something, he couldn't copy it word by word. He had to rewrite it in his own words in 1 or 2 sentences, right? About this source. So it could be a paper, it could be someone says, and the second deck he had was ideas, or he called them fleeting notes. And that's been one of the biggest things for me is like I'll read a paper, so I read like mass research and review, and I read a cool study, right? And then I'll like want to highlight the whole thing, and then I'm like, that's not going to work for me. So I write it in a way that in that moment it's going to help me with say the context that I'm looking at. So say I'm going to use a study that I recently read. What was it? I cannot remember, bro. No, I do remember. No, because I haven't read it. I haven't.
He didn't read it.
Yeah, no, it's not. The only reason it's flawed is because I haven't been reading for a while. No, what it had was, I'll tell you the paper, the exact paper, right? Yeah. And the paper was essentially a bench press comparing with feet elevated versus feet on the floor.
Like a hook lying.
Yeah.
Or a Larson press.
They didn't use, they just said that was the difference, bro. Feet up, feet not up, right? And
Where were the feet though?
Yeah, no, elevated, literally like that.
Okay.
Like fucking 90 degrees, right? And basically
Like
study,
a dead bug.
yeah, like a dead bug.
Oh my God.
A 90-90 bench.
Pretty much, right? And essentially out of the study, it said that with the feet elevated, the prime movers had a higher EMG rating, right?
Hello, Larson press appel if it's big on.
Yeah. Anyways, so you had that and had a bit of application takeaway. And I was like, this is a 3-4 page study. And all I got out of it, I was like, cool. If I want the prime movers or like, say, what I want. It was like, I put it in my category as like a variant, but I was like, in which situation would I use it? And I was like, I don't really bench press. So then I was like, it's not really a useful study for me. Because whereas before I used to try to get as much information and put in some kind of category, I was like, I'm not going to use it right. I'm a fucking weightlifter. I might use it as a variant, as a horizontal press. It was cool to know that.
You said it right.
Horizontal press. There we go. That's
I
my word.
did.
Yeah. But the main idea here is
That was
when you read
That was
something,
our best clip on TikTok, bro.
when you read something, does it challenge something that you already know? And if it does, you look at other sources that have a similar view on that, so that it might change your mind, so to speak. But the key thing is I had to rewrite it to the way I understood it. Because before I used to copy things word by word and I'd store it somewhere, it'd mean nothing to me.
Sure.
And so then how am I ever supposed to challenge it? Because pretty much everything that we ever work towards, we're either adding information to the types of training that we're after or the types of stimulus, or we're basically like challenging the idea. And I was like, it can only ever be two things. So fleeting notes, you guys might write something or say something and I'll write it down. I'll be like, cool, I'm going to add that to my ideas that might change the way I do hypertrophy training or the way I do strength training. Like you mentioned a while ago with the back offset stuff, right? And I literally wrote that down as a fleeting idea. I was like, look at ways that I could implement this for Oaked. Because for me, I was like, I need to figure a way of how I can do auto-regulation for most people, but I can't do that because it's not individual. And so I pick a specific context where I could use that. Whereas that could just be a generic information. It might not be useful for me, right? Like the feet elevator. I don't know, what's the ways that you guys interact with information?
Well, I said, like, I thought mine was much more simpler, and that was that when I just got to, before I even say that, what you said just before was so profound for me, because I was like, that is literally how my brain operates. Because you were like, if it's something that I already know, I don't really pay too much attention to it. I'm just like, yeah, cool. And just move on. If it's something that opposes it or challenges it, that's when I really kind of start to hone in on that. That's actually when I put time and energy into understanding what it is. So if it's stuff that I'm like, if it's just like a recurrence, like a recurring conversation or topic or whatever else, I'm just like, yeah, cool. Like I got the gist of it. Because when I do seek this, understand something from the beginning, I try to understand it as best as I can there and then. But secondly, like my way, why I think it's so much simpler is because as soon as I get something, I get it out. Like, it comes in, it comes out.
What do you mean by comes out?
A piece of content, a post, conversation.
I started doing
I'll purposely form conversations with people, with you guys, with anyone around me, just so that I can fucking say it.
No,
I've started doing the same thing, and it's so good.
And it's just one way that it's just there. Boom, it's there.
Like he who teaches learns. We know this.
Sure, and that's what I do, because if we're presenting that workshop in the deadlift, someone's like, oh yeah, where are you getting all this information? I'll be like, I'm not going to cite you anything.
But if you're not writing if you're not writing a paper and you're not going towards that side, like, you don't need to.
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to cite you anything, but I'll explain to the nth degree everything I just said.
Yeah.
So you tell me if that's a legitimate understanding or not.
I do something like similar, but I'll I don't know, say I'm doing a course or I read something or whatever. I'll summarize it in Notion. You like that? Eh?
I also talk to myself a lot.
Yeah, summarize it in Notion, and then usually I'll turn it into a piece of content.
Sure.
If it's like of value, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
You'll also find it happens quite frequently, what you said earlier, where it's like, you'll forget it. You'll forget it. But then one word will say something.
You get
like,
a keyword.
I just remember the entire thing.
And that's usually another thing I do as well. Like if I sort of do summarize something, I'll take a few keywords out of that and I'll put them down below. And then, like, I try and have them as like a trigger. If I can come back.
Weird.
If I come back to it, I don't have to read the whole thing. I can just read those keywords and I go, okay, I know what that's about.
Because there's a certain context that you're applying to this, which is why I fucking hate Instagram when people post things and it's like it could be bang on, right? But the context, you don't know where the hell they're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
And why so many people get upset, like, fuck the Nordics and shit like that.
Yeah. I say it all the time. It's like, doesn't matter how good your post can be, how good your caption is. Doesn't matter how much information you put there, you put in it, right? An opposing context can be applied to it and the outcome changes instantly.
Yeah, we know this though. Like, if you believe something to be true, you'll find a fucking paper backing it half the time. Like, there's probably something out there that says you're right.
Or you'll do the old throwaway, like,
I hate
there's a study.
confirmation bias. Yeah, it's the bane of my existence.
Yeah,
I do it all the time, right?
Huge,
it's like, nah, I don't feel right about this. Let me make myself feel better.
That was one of the things the book encouraged, How to Take Smart Notes, was literally, what's the opposing view? That's what science supposed to teach you. The way you do scientific papers and stuff is you literally have to have a section that challenges the opposing view of what you're trying to say, the hypothesis. And so it's like people forget to read that part.
It's interesting you brought content into it, because that's how I was actually planning my content over obviously I've been pretty fucking dry over the last 2 weeks. It's been fried. Busy.
Dry?
Yeah. Sorry, Tiff. But usually I'll not force myself, but I'll plan a couple of hours on a Sunday to learn something or reread something I've already learnt, and then that'll start as my topic for the week of posts, and then I'll put out maybe something on a story or a post that could just be a quote that's relative to that. and then hopefully create some engagement. Or what does that mean? And then there'll be like a flow-on effective posts about that same topic for that week.
Yeah, I wish I had such a great little nifty sequence of
but
order
it works,
of posting.
bro.
But I'm quite I'm quite sporadic. I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'll talk about supplements today, I'll talk about jeans tomorrow, I'll talk about training the next after that, and after that I'll talk about life and how you can become better about it. But
100%. It works for you.
Yeah, but you're like, I don't know, you're chaotic and can fucking pull shit from everywhere. I'm not as good as that. Good at that.
honestly, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing.
I think it's a great thing.
The only time it's a great thing is if I can pull things in a chaotic manner, but also be able to dig into it.
I believe you can on most things.
I probably can, but
You got the gift of the gab, bro.
yeah.
maybe. Who knows? Yeah.
Mujura, what's your Instagram strategy?
Man, I suffer from this, and
I'll tell you what I suffer from: Instagram.
it must consume so much of your time, bro.
It consumes my fucking emotional well-being.
It's hard, man. This
Do you understand? Like it's
you know, I was feeling a little bit like this yesterday. You know what Muj told me?
I'm addicted to TikTok.
Stop being a pussy.
Stop being a
Boy, I'm
pussy,
addicted to TikTok. What do I do?
Yeah.
TikTok is so
I don't
dangerous,
know. I
man.
don't know.
I literally sit there for 20 minutes and just scroll.
Now you start.
It's not even market
now
research.
you start to understand the psyche and how these things do it so well. And
And they hook you.
when I say emotional well-being, I mean it. It's like, the following's not awfully large, and
It is, man. You're just about to get your blue little sticker.
but it's like, you put up a piece of content, and it's like, the content that I put up isn't you go about it a nice way. I like how you craft your content. You map out what you're going to do for the week and you send it. Whereas I just do cater. I do sporadic stuff that I already know. But everything that I ultimately do know is as a result of a pretty long time of like trying to understand such topic and expressing and exposing and employing and all that kind of stuff. And like I'm summarizing something that I know in one post, right, as best as I can with as much context as I possibly can. And then it gets like 6 likes, and you're just like, wow, really? Yeah, and it's like I'm expecting people to like my shit kind of thing, which is wrong in the first instance. And it's crazy.
I get that.
But it's the ultimate form of synthesis. Like you literally did a post about being able to synthesize information, right? There's not a lot of mediums. We are not writing ebooks or writing papers out there, right?
Yeah.
So we need one form of doing that. And this is forcing us because like, I've just finished my mentorship and now I'm going through the whole thing and like, cool. How am I
about to get some sweet?
Yeah,
content.
because it's awesome.
You heard it here first.
Follow Aiden on Instagram.
You heard it here
guys.
first.
No, it's obviously going to be more
You're
through
going to get
robots.
one piece every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
Yeah, no, go on.
Man, I'm fucking packing at the moment. We're doing 120 hours a week, man.
Yeah, I know, it's
intense. What was I going to say? Yeah, no, now that I've learned all that stuff, I want to not commit it to memory because not all of it's going to be relevant to me, but I want to, remember some key things. And the best way of doing that is by interacting with that information and finding a way of how I can communicate it to my way. And I'm kind of excited about it because I've got a lot of things that I want to like explore.
Tell us the worst when you spend ages like writing up a post, something like this is sick, and then you finish it and it took a couple of hours and you're like, this is trash.
Yeah.
And you just delete it and you start again. You're like, I just wasted 2 hours.
Yeah.
The worst.
The worst part is trying to choose appropriate colours and font pairs.
Bro, that's why
That gives me
I moved
anxiety,
away.
man.
I moved away from like the crazy shit you do. Like,
That's why I love Notion, bro.
Man,
Because
that takes
Notion
me
only has
too long.
3 types of text that you can choose, right?
And the one that you choose is the ugliest one.
Which one?
Have you been on his profile? He chooses the hideous text
No,
one.
it doesn't, bro. It's fucking beautiful, man.
It is gross.
Do you like my tables? They're colourful, bro.
No, tables are beautiful.
Tables are good.
I actually just added some colour to mine.
Wait, see?
Because people like colour.
Yeah.
Right?
What
It
colour
doesn't
did you
look
go with? I went
sterile.
blue.
Yellow.
Fuck.
you're blue though.
We're blue, bro. Rober's blue.
I'm pink, you're blue, you're yellow.
By the way, we're about to get some fucking sick shirts.
Oh yeah, 6 shirts on the way. So if you want a shirt, hit us up.
And we've got big things happening like these workshops.
If you hit us up and you go, I listen to the podcast and here you guys are getting shirts, I want a shirt, you can get cost price.
He just gave everyone a thumbs up, by the way.
Yeah.
That's good. You know what?
Smithy's going to be onto that.
That's fine.
The workshops. Exciting. This is ultimate form of synthesis.
Yeah. Because it's like we're not here just to provide people with a coaching service. I mean, a programming service, sorry. It is a coaching service. And I think, what's a coach to you?
Someone who can mentor me.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No,
Yes.
a coach to me is, they're obviously, they're teaching me a skill, but they're also mentoring me for the process, right?
Yeah.
Because like we've made this distinction, right, between our different programs. Like we've got, custom, oaked. They're a program. You follow a program, right? Whereas when you come onto level 2, Level 3, you are now getting coached, right? Because you also have got the mentor aspect of going through what it is you're going. So to me, that's what a coach is. They provide both the skill that you're after, whatever specific task, but they're also giving you the mentor process.
The understanding of it all kind of thing. And so, we want to exist on that realm where we're not just providing people with load sets and reps. It's like, we're also going to provide them with information and understanding. And so that's often what drove us to come up with these workshop ideas. And it's a big thing, right? It's like, who the fuck is going to listen to three dudes with like 660 followers on Instagram, whatever? It's like, obviously we understand that numbers don't necessarily mean shit, but, so I think the workshops are going to be pretty interesting as well,
I'm excited because, like, you can't say this shit about yourself, but I'm like, I like to think we have some type of unique personality,
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like we can entertain, right? At least you can get entertainment.
Sure.
If not, hell, learn how to fucking deadlift.
I think so. I think, look, let's not toot our own horns.
I think so.
Yeah, like
I think, Lou, you're pretty funny.
Yeah, try to be. Yeah, funny looking.
Don't I think you're very serious? Nah.
Bro, he's been working on it for so long. Give him credit.
Well, absolutely no. I had all the TikTok videos of us fucking up is me.
I know. We take fucking the piss out of you.
It's good though. It's like horizontal puss. We got what else?
There's a lot. Don't worry. I got a reel coming of like all my fuck ups of me filming myself here. There's so many, bro.
It's hard to be on camera. Like I experienced that last week when Dennis put me on the spot.
Yeah, especially
couldn't even look at the camera.
When there's like a big lens in your face.
Yeah, man, that was intense, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how people who do it in the adult business, like that camera's right there, man. How do you perform?
Oh shit! Well, I think that's quite very.
Imagine if that thing's right in front of you, bro. What do you?
Did we tell you about the pizza delivery guy?
No. Oh, yeah, he said
No, he came back, bro.
I'll give you an update, man. Because
let's go to the backstory.
Backstory. It's the pizza dude, right? Yeah. So we order pizza sporadically, maybe like once every 2 months, right? No, we don't. Every week.
No, I'm not allowed takeaway anymore.
No way. Yeah, but go on. Yeah. So the first time.
Yeah, the first time we ordered, I believe it was a salad. And the delivery guy rocked up, and he opened the door, and like from our doorway you can see our like studio set up. So it's like a big drop sheet, and then like matting and trees. And if you go on YouTube, you can see it. So
you should go on YouTube, like it, rate it, subscribe,
like,
give us a comment.
Big lights everywhere, screens, multiple cameras, like pretty professional setup. Don't mind me saying myself, but and he saw it and he's like, this is just like bogan Aussie dude. He's like, oh, you got a fucking porn studio back there. I was just like, what? I was like, nah, man.
You forget how someone else can see it.
Yeah. I was like, nah, man. He's like, what do you do? What do you use it for? And we're like, oh, we just film a podcast. He's like, what's it on? We're like, oh, like just training and like strength conditioning, all that kind of stuff. He's like, yeah, I used to do some MMA. He's like, I had a couple fights, and I was like,
oh yeah.
Missing teeth, I was like, how'd you go? He's like, yeah, I won fight, undefeated. Proper lad. I was like,
and then he comes back.
He came back
like a week later.
Another salad, yeah.
Another salad. And then this time Louis wasn't home. I had my shirt off. And I'm walking to the door and open the door. He's like, you sure you're not running porn studio? He's like, next time I can have my pants down if you want. He's like, we can do a pizza scene. I love that. I was like, oh man.
Why is there a hole in this box?
Oh man.
Got a video. It was so funny, man.
Shit.
It's just like, you don't get that. You don't get that in country where they're just so loose, man.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. Lean forward slightly. You're out of frame.
All right, sweet. Let's wrap it up.
Nah, man. I reckon we can go another 10 minutes. It's only been 50 minutes, bro.
I just kind of wanted to wrap it up because it's like we left it on a pretty high note.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll leave it on people.
I got something to leave it on. I read yesterday. It was awesome.
So people are going to hear what I just said.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so embarrassing.
I'll bleep it out.
You said that last time, bro. Then bleeped it out.
No, because it's too hard. All right. Have you guys heard of the compound effect?
I don't know, maybe.
I have
Explain.
compound.
You
Like
have.
interest, compound interest?
Yeah, compound interest. Like I only read this yesterday and I was like, oh, it's really cool. And it kind of had some cool relation to training. But basically it's the premise of if you have 1 cent and you double that 1 cent every day for 30 days, on the 30th day you'll have about $5 million. On the 31st day you'll have $10 million. So it's basically that in the relation to all the small things that compound when it comes to training. So, and that's something we tend to forget because we're always looking at the big picture. We're not looking at, all the other little things.
Yeah. Are you okay? You look like you're about to cry.
I'm getting a bit emotional. But yeah, I just thought it was a really cool thing, and it's like the whole premise of small, smart decisions, consistency, and time equal radical changes.
This is called perspectives. I like this. This is great. I think it's always wise to have perspectives like this in place and to remind yourself of them. Absolutely, man.
And that was probably the thing that like my injuries yesterday, this was like triggered. Like it was actually really cool timing because the course I'm doing, there was like this whole thing that came up of like mindset and mental training, not just necessarily physical training. And it was like a good reminder. I was like, okay, cool, sweet. So again, that whole control the controllables, still control what you can. All right. And then don't just look at, oh, I can't do these 5 movements because of this, but what can I do? I can still eat well. I can still hydrate well. I can still train around all these issues that might be arising and get a good stimulus. And I can still get good sleep, and everything else is still good, right? And those little things can still have a massive outcome at the end of the day.
Unless it's your jaw, in which case you're fucked. You can't drink much. You can't eat properly. You probably can't sleep on that side.
We do it well, man.
Just get a straw.
We do it well. We
Blender
always
and a straw.
We do it well, like in turning things that aren't that great into opportunities. We always look to the positive side, right? I've seen it time and time again where we're like, all right, this weekend's coming up. That's going to be 2 days away. It's going to be stressful because we're not going to get everything done and stuff. And then we like turn that into positive of like, man, us 3 like best friends fucking get to go hang out, get to listen to someone speak that we appreciate, so to speak, and we get to catch up with old friends, we get to meet other people, we'll continue spreading the Rover word, and I'm like, fuck, now I'm excited, right? Same thing when I got injured last year. I was fucking same thing. I was missed nationals, and I was like, fuck. But then I turned it into an opportunity, and I was like, I get to explore using some machines, learn that, explore stuff that I don't really do. And if anything, it's like helped so much because I got a lot stronger toward the end of the year. And so it's like always looking to that side. Because I had this conversation this morning. It was like I woke up early 5 and one of my clients was like,
you were up early this morning.
I was up early. I don't know. I just got up. I was like, fuck. And anyways, happened message me saying, I'm not going to be able to do a lot of training. I'm going for work, stuff. And like I was sort of triggered, and I was like, all right. I was like, you traveling for work? Yeah, I'm traveling. I won't be in like a certain location. I've got no gym, no nothing. And then I was like, do you know what? A quarter. I was like, cool. So you're telling me that in your whole day you can't afford 15 to 20 minutes of training? Like she's like, I don't have a gym. I was like, right now, or before you go to your trip, go to Rebel Sport or Kmart, go buy yourself 3 bands, 3 different resistance bands. And I was like, we can do everything we require. We can push, we can pull, we can do lower body effort. We can do that. 15, 20 minutes, you're saying you can't afford because you told me your goal is important, right? And that is the little effects because shout out to 2 of the girls I've been proud of, like they've been assisting in the flight assists. And I've had other clients or just people in general really who, complain about their situation, they can't fit training and stuff. And, these people have been helping assist the whole time. They've been doing these bodyweight sessions wherever they can. They're being consistent. They've been the little 1%ers and they've come back now. They've maintained some of their fitness and they're better for it, right? Because they've done that kind of thing. Yeah, it goes out. It's going to be hard.
It's hard to do. And I know I've got a lot of people in a similar boat. The Open's over for the year, right? So the thing you've just trained for a long period of time is done. What do you do now? And it's easy to go, 12 months until the next one's a lot of hard work. Because it is a big commitment. It's a lot of hard, especially if it's your goal to do well. But it's looking at those things that you can do in that time frame. Do what you can, right? And then hopefully the results follow.
Because we know that you can do things with less, right? I've always been on the pretense, like back in the day when I couldn't access to a gym, I just want to train. Yeah. Whereas now I don't really need it. I've got my body away. I can do some terrible things just doing that.
Yeah, right? That's exactly right. There's always something you can do. And like those, it was like yesterday when I was, feeling sorry for myself. That another thing is like those grounding words. Yeah, I know. Like the grounding words. Do you do much about like grounding words? Like if you're having like a shit mindset, something that sort of triggers you to be like, suck it up.
I've heard that. No, recently I watched a video and it was like, it literally changed my mind quickly. And I used to remind myself, it was like, I have to train. And I was like, no, I fucking want to train. Because I did that today. I was like, today's a busy day. And I was like, I've got to get training done. And I was like, fuck that. No, I want to train. So I'm going to fit it in. And I wanted to train. I trained. And I was like, something simple as that, man.
Yeah.
What's your grounding word?
Mine?
Yeah.
I just tell myself I love this. If it gets shit, I just go, I love this.
Why do you love it?
I might not, but I just tell myself I love it.
What about you, Dennis?
I'm at a post about exactly what you just said. Just
must have read it, bro. See subconscious fucking priming here.
You should probably go have a look at it, man. But it's like, you know,
Pretty sure I liked it.
Instead of saying that you have to do things, it's like you want to do them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's crazy how much it changes your psyche.
Absolutely.
Once you put it in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so easy to just go, nah, I won't do that. But it's hard to go, I love this, I want to do this, especially on those bad days. But as soon as you say that to yourself and then you go do it, you get about 5
Does
10
it work the opposite? I hate pizza.
We'll try. But you usually get 5-10 minutes into that thing and you're like, oh, this isn't so bad.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And with that, I think that's a fucking...
Yeah,
I think that's good.
We'll wrap it up.
Powerful words, guys.
Cool.
Yeah, on that.
Red out.